Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Sam Sachs of Sam Sachs Design, and welcome to my family home in Toronto.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Sam Sachs from Sam Sachs Design, and welcome to my family home in Toronto. I got into interior design in a sort of sideways manner, and I had actually been working in editorial and working in magazines, and I had this unique perspective on what the storytelling behind a house was. And I've always considered myself an artist, and if I wasn't painting, I was writing. And as I sort of segued into, I don't know, maybe monetizing that art in some way, or a better way might just be saying, like, trying to feed a family of 5 as an artist, I segued into opening my own design shop. So I opened that 16 years ago, and I've really been telling stories about the people that live in homes. And that's what I like when I go and meet people. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to learn everything I possibly can about my clients, and then I want to reflect them back at themselves in like the coolest possible way in their house. My husband and I have 3 kids, and this is actually our 3rd house in Toronto. We stayed in the same area for, I don't know what this is now, 24 years, I guess, is our home journey. And our first house was this tiny, tiny little semi. It was really like 2 bedrooms and a laundry room. And when my second was born, his bedroom was that laundry room. And then we moved to a really gorgeous semi-detached Victorian house, and I thought that was gonna be our forever house. Like, I could not believe that house when we moved in. Fast forward, like, I'm gonna say 10 years in that house, and the kids were like somewhere around 6, 8, and 10, and they were just starting to fill it out. And I could just see this future where, like, I wanted all the kids to be coming back to our house, and I liked the idea of like a sleepover for each kid every weekend. And we were starting to split at the seams. And by that point, we'd done, like, my renovations were always really surgical. They weren't massive. They were really budget conscious. And we'd done enough of one or a few that the house looked pretty great. And we stumbled on this house, and it was at that point duplex and needed everything, and was sitting, which was really, really unusual in Toronto's real estate market. And so we just like lowballed them. And a month later, they wrote us back and we got the house. This house was duplexed. So you walked in, this is the original front door. You walked in this front door, and then there were 2 doors here. One led upstairs. The staircase was actually buried in a wall, and the other one led to the suite on the main floor. And we were super lucky because when we tore down the wall, we suspected that the staircase may still be in it, and it totally was. We still had to redo part of the stairs, just at the bottom, but we were really lucky that the staircase and the railing remained largely intact. When you walked into this house, basically there was like, I can't even remember, if you want the truth, what was underneath this tile, but then there was linoleum that ran through to the kitchen, which was kind of a bathroom. Like, there was so much happening in here. So we actually replaced this floor with just strip hardwood and tried our best to match it with the old hardwood that sat in the dining room and living room. This little marble mosaic is like a Ming green marble with a Carrara. I love it. It's never done me wrong. And then we've got two louvered doors, old Egyptian doors, that there's a small closet inside there. This is my living room. This is the room that I was so excited about when we first, like, the space started revealing itself to me and to the family. It was the first space that really came together. And when we renovated, I put all this furniture in before like the walls were painted, because that's how incredibly excited I was. But this living room needed to be big enough for snuggling. So the couch like is really long, it's 8 feet. It needed to be a good lie in front of the fire, read a book kind of couch. I hate a TV. I hate it in a living room. Like, I actually hate a TV on the main floor in a house. And I compromised, and I'll show you in the kitchen where we put one, but I'm not down for the TV. And it was about the fireplace. I'm constantly changing this room up. So like there's different stuff in here every time you walk in. And this is my fall rug situation. So this Moroccan I hauled back from Marrakesh a few years ago. And then underneath it, you will see I have like a jute rug, like a sisal rug. And then underneath that, I have a Tuareg rug. So these rugs are layered right now, but they're not layered because that's a look. They're layered out of laziness and lack of storage, because I will pull up the Moroccan that's on here like in the spring, because I want to sort of freshen up the space. And then I've got the rug I need underneath it. And maybe I decide I don't want the sisal, I want the Tuareg, which is this leather and reed rug that's incredible underneath it. Maybe that's what I want. So basically all of my options are here for me. This coffee table I like because it kind of holds the room really well. It's big, it's vintage. I bought it from a local seller who I often buy stuff from. And then hilariously, another designer was over for dinner recently. He's quite famous, and he came in and was like, oh, that was my mother's coffee table. So he'd sold it to that seller and I bought it, which is so funny. But basically, I'm not precious about it. It's burl wood and brass. It's 70s. I put whatever I feel like I'm constantly changing this up. So right now, these are the coffee table books, and this is my coffee table book, which I have a couple of just of my work. It's just like, I don't know, it's not, I love flipping through them for inspiration. They're nice if your guests are in here and you're making them a drink and they want to, like, you know, you're making conversation and you're in the kitchen. They've got something to flip through, and there's a different thing on here all the time. These are from my garden. This was like from some, it's not a valuable piece, but I just loved it. So the art in this space is all collected over years. This piece here and another piece also in this room are both painted canvases that we picked up on Venice Beach one day, like from a guy. I think we gave him, like, my husband insisted on giving him $100 for both. Like, that's how, I don't know, random it was. And then I pressed them between these two pieces of plexiglass, and they are two of my favorite pieces in this room. This Noguchi lamp over here is, I've had my eye on that forever. I've been obsessed. I put a client on a list for that lamp. My client decided they didn't want it, and I was like, we were next in line, and I just bought it, and it's mine now. I kept telling people that I was gonna give it to another client, but I can't part with it. Also in this living room is just all the stuff of my life. So, which I think is important for a living room. So These giant insects, which come from somewhere in Indonesia, which I did not buy in Indonesia. I think I bought in a flea market somewhere. And they come with like their own little mothball. Like each one has a mothball container in it. And they're wild, but I love them and I love the color of them. And my kids have stared at them for like, their entire lives. This was my granny's piggy bank. And and there's still, wait, yeah, there's still money in it. And I just like, it just is all so meaningful. This was these two books were my childhood books. Like there's just so much here. There's like a kid's trophy. It's just full of the stuff, honestly, that matters to me is what's in here. There are moments all over this house, and even though this is like the formal living room, it's not really formal. I mean, it's formal in that like I don't want somebody with a juice box on my sofa, but it's still full of like all the stuff of our life. So these are all like, and it's not all of my kids' teeth, but it's a lot of teeth that came out of my kids' heads naturally. And so that's what I have here. And I don't know if you guys remember these little boxes that they get like sent home. A tooth falls out at school, and so your child comes home with a little box, and the tooth fairy is coming that night. I just couldn't part with any of it, so these are a bunch of teeth, okay? This is something that my daughter made, I don't know, in some art class. That's what we've got here. These I picked up in a vintage store up in Northern Ontario. These are like whenever a kid has a birthday, they get a little tag like this. Sometimes we keep them, sometimes we don't, but that's what those are. My husband, he's in film and television, and he was in China on a shoot, and he brought these back from the Great Wall. This is an old grenade brought back from somewhere in France. So it's just stuff. Like it's all the stuff that happens in your life that feels, I don't know, it's interesting, it's architectural, it's got some kind of meaning, and that's what this room is full of. I'm a terrible guitar player, but I'm a guitar player nonetheless. And my son, my middle son, is the most unbelievable guitar player. So during COVID, we do this thing where he'd get me on the electric, and then he was teaching me stuff, and I can't part with it. Like this is all of my lesson stuff from him, and we would just sit here and jam, and it was so amazing to be, I don't know, have that bit of his life. And we were playing like heavy metal, which is the really funny part of it. This Frida Kahlo is from a junk shop in this small, tiny, cool little Mexican town. And I love her. She does look like she's in drag. And then like an IKEA lamp, because it does the job. I've got two of these chairs, and I went on this really cool buying trip to Round Top, Texas. It's this unbelievable vintage flea market situation, and my girlfriend, who is an incredible designer, called me up and just said like, we've got room, do you want to come with us tomorrow? And she'd done that to me once before, and I hadn't gone, and it had haunted me that I hadn't gone. So I literally went. I decided, I think at like 3, I booked a ticket for 6 p.m. Like 3 p.m., I booked a ticket, was on a plane at 6 p.m. And anyway, we had the most amazing time. I bought these 2 pine chairs. It's kind of like, the thing about Round Top is that they're really showing the next trend. And then I brought them home and reupholstered them. Again, they were for a client, but I can't part with them. So here they are in my living room. And this light is a replica of a very famous mid-century light. And it works really well in the space because it's got these 3 arms that reach out and light a square room very, very well. I drink my wine and choose my seating locations based on the seasons. And in the winter/fall, this is my space entirely. And I lie on the sofa, and almost every night there's a fire in this fireplace. And then I stare out at the street and my neighbors, and I can hear the kids. These windows are not, the mullions on these windows are kind of as close to what maybe would have been here originally, which were like leaded glass, and you'll see leaded glass in the rest of the house. I basically put these grills on as like a close proximity. So when we purchased this house about 12 years ago, it was actually duplexed. And I think that's why it had been sitting on the market, really. But it was, you walked in and you opened the front door, and then you were immediately faced with two doors. And our staircase, the handrail was actually buried in a wall. And you could either go upstairs to one home, or you could go through another door sort of into what is now our kitchen and find another home. And we still had to do surgical. Like, my husband and I are two artists, and so everything is done like on a budget. So I really kept, if there was a plumbing run somewhere, I tried to like stack the bathrooms on top of that plumbing run. Like, I really tried not to move too much. And then additionally, I loved the house. Like, the house was just full of charm and full of character. And I didn't want to mess with too much good stuff. The floors were all completely mismatched and lots of linoleum. And the stairs, the area that's the stairs to our basement now actually had a 5-piece bathroom with like a tub right off what is now our dining room. And this kind of funky 3-season room at the back we opened up, and it's now our sunroom, and that's kind of our main hangout zone. But then we kept, like, the floors in the living room and dining room are this beautiful rift cut quarter sawn oak, and we just laid, where that linoleum had been, some 3/4 inch strip oak and stained it to match. And then similarly, we painted out some of the wood, and then we hung on to some of the really gorgeous old oak doors between the living room and dining room, as well as the staircase and this extraordinary coffered ceiling in the dining room. I'm going to take you in now to our formal dining room. And I'm doing it in quotations because there's so much ridiculous stuff in this dining room. It's not terribly formal, but these doors were original to the house, and this is something we kept. So there's one on each side. Like, we could close it off if we're having a dinner party. We have never, ever, ever done that, but I just think that the peak of the dark wood against the white is particularly beautiful. And we've tried to hang on to like quite a bit of wood in this house, but not have it feel dark. So in this dining room is where we eat dinner every night. So it's not fancy, and everyone's got their seat, and it's like these chairs, these aren't real Hans Wagner's, but these wishbone chairs I've had since I think I've had them for 20 years. Like, spaghetti has been eaten on them, everything, and they've just held up beautifully. So it's a hard working room. This light was purchased. I used to have a friend who was a light maker, and it was sort of all the rage a while ago. I still love this light because he did such a beautiful job for me on it. And then these coffered ceilings were here originally. That's part of the original architecture of the house, as is the plate rail, which is like this little business up here. But it was really dark before, and we painted it out. And then this is sort of the stucco plaster behind here, which is also kind of, it's original, it's old, it's super cool. And then I've just maxed out on the art because I can't resist the opportunity to put something somewhere. So this is an artist named Isabella Vella, who I've loved forever. I started following her work when she was really like a kid in high school. She went to a local art school with a friend's daughter. I thought she was really talented. I've been buying it ever since. I buy it for my clients all the time. That was made by a kid of mine. This was brought back from my parents took each one of my kids on their 13th birthdays, or like when they turned 13, they took them on an amazing trip and they got to pick where they wanted to go. And this guy chose Italy, and this he purchased in Vienna, and I stuck it up there. We went with my husband's family to Hawaii. I did not ride this surfboard ever, but I still managed to get it into my carry-on, or not into my carry-on, but in the like special stuff. And it came home, and it just brings me great joy. And I do surf, but I have been surfing for about 20 years. I've surfed all over the world, and I am a beginner in every place always. So I can say I've done it, but not on that. This is a happy place. These windows are, so this is the leaded glass that would have been traditional to this house. There were a smaller grill pattern originally on this. I actually need to get these stained still. I still haven't stained them, but I did deliberately choose, this is pine on the inside, oak here. I'm waiting for the only person in the world who I trust to be able to stain these two woods, these two different types of woods, and get the same finish out of them. This I brought back. It's a kudu horn. They shed them. It's not like they killed a beast or anything. They just shed their horns, and that's from Africa. And then this is a very famous Canadian artist named Kent Monkman. And this is called Miss Europe. And he did this series where he put them on skateboards and kind of mass produced them. But it's basically like here's Thatcher, here's the Pope. There's sort of like every major player in world history is in here. And then this is actually meant to be the artist on top of this cow, sacred cow. That I brought back from this crazy little place in Paris. And this little guy up here this is actually a friend who's an artist who I asked for my husband's 50th if she would paint this picture of my husband and my son that they'd taken on a big climbing trip. So that's what that is. And this mask here was actually in my family home growing up. My parents are South Africans. I just love seeing things that I remember, I guess. And this guy is a somewhat well-known artist in Morocco that we picked up in a town called Essaouira. And so it's just full of awesome stuff. Again, moments of life here that we're all living around. This room gets used for a lot of dinner parties. We like to host. We like having our friends here. We like having our family here. There's usually a New Year's Eve dinner party is sort of our annual event. Adjacent to the dining room is the kitchen. And there used to be a full wall in between the kitchen and the dining room. And we removed that wall, but kept some of the structure in place and then tied it in between the island and these two support beams on either side. And then we also tied it into the coffering above. And on the back side of the island, I wanted something decorative. I didn't want to have those sort of like a line of stools and then a line of lights and then the range on the other side. I wanted to break it up a little bit. So I've got tons of storage on the back of here. There was a period where this was like all board games that were getting hauled out and used at the dining room table. Life's changed. There's no board games anymore. And now it's more decor. But it's all the stuff that I use regularly, like, napkins for the dinner table, like vases, all that kind of stuff is living in there. And then when we come around, I kept like a little apron around this island, which I'm very, very fond of still, like 12 years later. And then again, I kept this really like, I don't know, like this modern shaker front on the cabinets. There's a face frame in here, but I wanted to throw back to the Tudor and the arts and crafts stuff that was already happening in this house. The pulls are recessed in, and I think it gives a really nice nod to the traditional bones of the house, but it still feels very recent, modern, whatever. I hate the word contemporary, but you know what I mean. This is my TV compromise up here. So this is on with my husband watching tennis all the time. And he's really like, when the guys were putting it in, they were like, what? Like, it's such a bad viewing perspective, but it's really like the radio of tennis, of sports that's happening there. So if he's cooking, he's got that, and he looks up like it's. I do a version of this with all of the Real Housewives, but that's what's happening there. And then this is quite a hardworking island. Again, like there's a panel dishwasher under here, garbage and recycling, and then this oven is awesome. It's a convection oven and a microwave, and it's a game changer because it's basically like having a whole other oven, which I love. The profile on this countertop is, I think it's like 2 3/4 inches. I can't remember what it was. I was playing up the blockiness of the style in the kitchen. So the leg over here is really, really chunky. Like we've got all these sort of solid, chunky bits. Like this is really big. The shaker around here is really thick. So I wanted like, it's not a delicate house and it's not a delicate look. And it's in keeping with the architecture that I made this decision to give this really thick profile on the countertops. And I love these. I love this stone. So back to my surgical renovation, which is another word for like cost-cutting, cheap renovation. This stone at the time, which was 12 years ago, people only wanted the whitest marble. Like that's what was in at the time. It was like the whitest Carrara or the whitest Calicut. And this was too gray to be of interest to anyone. So I got it at a discount, and that's why I have it, and I love it. Over here, so for years I've been working with these huge old Egyptian doors, and there's a lot of vintage in this house, and there's a lot of vintage in all of my work because it's always, the patina in it has so much soul and so much character, and you can't really replicate it. So these doors, and I'll tell you a funny thing, the guys who renovated this house were in stitches over all the old doors. And they basically, and they wanted to, the doors are often dipped in lye, and that's how they remove all of the layers of paint. And lye is like something that would burn the skin off your hands. But so I love all of the oldness. Like I love all the dinging, and I love like, this is like my family's greasy hands. That's why it's darker here. But you'll see little bits of old paint on these doors. You'll just, and right here you can see it. And the guys who renovated said like, oh, for Sam, all you need to do is take something and stick it out in the backyard and let like the raccoons pee on it and leave it for a winter, a spring, and a summer, and then she'll pay a whole bunch of money for it. So that was their take on this. But anyway, these doors are the doors to my pantry. And it's kind of awesome and just keeps like almost everything. Oh, and my son, who's now a businessman, who's living with us, he spills all over everything. So we got him an adult bib, and that's what this is here. In order to really understand architecture and be making educated moves in design, you kind of need to know the history of everything. So when was really one country conquered by another country? And when did they bring their stuff there? And then when did a third country bring that stuff back to maybe England or Spain or wherever? And when did it become popular? And that's really the history of our homes, is the history of our lives. It's the history that we know. And that's how we know when things have a place. So I was playing off some Spanish colonial stuff. That's where these worked. That's why they worked. Sometimes there's a reason, and sometimes I just really like it. The most fun space was really the main floor. Like, it made sense to me right off the bat. The rooms flowed perfectly, even though there were walls in places. As soon as I took them down, I was like, I know exactly what to do here. It's magic. I remember coming down the stairs, because we lived through this reno. So we literally had our bed on the floor in the bedroom upstairs with plastic sheets, and on the other side were the guys working. It was a complete gong show, plus 3 kids, plus a big dog. I started smoking, it was bad. But what I will say is I remember coming down these stairs into the living room and just feeling my heart soaring. I couldn't believe that this was my home. This is where I was living. It was the most incredible feeling, and I've felt that a few times, and that is kind of the feeling that I want my clients to have every time they come down their stairs. So we're gonna walk through the kitchen and enter the sunroom. On the way, we've got this amazing china cabinet that was also basically on the back side of this is a closet. This was brick. This was the original back wall of the house. It's structural. We didn't want to get rid of it because it cost too much money. So instead, we just built this shallow china cabinet into one side of it. As you come through, this was basically a door, and this was a wall, and this was a 3-season room that wasn't insulated, and there was a tiny little weird, just crapwood windows, and then little door, and out to the garden. So we actually put the doors in on the right, these French doors out. Those weren't there before. And then we opened this all up and then made this space that is actually where this is the summer white wine spot. So this is the other half of the winter red wine living room. And this is where we spend an enormous amount of time. These are IKEA sofas. They're Ektorp nothing sofas. They've held up incredibly well because even with my big hairy dog, we can wash the slip covers. This is a Tuareg rug. There's another one under my dining room table. And then there is one layered, it's the third rug under the layer of living room rugs. And these are amazing for food because they're leather and reed, and you basically just wipe them off. And that's the beauty of them. And then it's just full, honestly, of family photos, plants, and just things that make me happy, things that smell good. That's what's in here. The cedar stool chair thing here on the floor is called a Maui chair. It's amazing. It's made from one piece of Spanish cedar, and it smells incredible. It's just, I don't know if you've ever been on holiday in Central America or there are places where you open the closet and the closet's made of this, and it's just this spicy, unbelievable scent comes out, and that's what this wood does. And we ordered it for a client. We all kind of thought it was going to be a bit bigger than it was. And so I've inherited it. It's very expensive. It is the opposite. We could buy 10 more IKEA sofas for the cost of the Maui chair. This is a little kind of weird, funny dead space between this column that on the other side, this is like this brick column that's structural in the house. And on the other side is this china cabinet. And rather than, like, nothing is ever, there's no blank walls in this house, nothing is ever a dead space. So I started a photo wall here. It's something that I know is stressful for people. There's nothing stressful about it. Like, I'm still going with it. It's not done. I basically just went online, went to like somewhere where I could blow up and frame the photos all in one, and then just started hanging them. And there's no rhyme or reason. Like, people get really stressed out and they've got tape and they're mapping it out, and then they want to hire me to do it, which is just not good for anyone. It's the easiest thing in the world, but just find a blank wall and hang stuff on it. That's my message. And then here, like, again, kids' art project. This kid is like way bigger than she is here. And this is our old, this is basically a piece of wood from the building store, and then more wood framing it. And then we painted it with chalkboard paint, and it had everyone's schedule on it. This schedule is so outdated, but I can't get rid of it. So that's why we're looking at it still. So I approached the design for this house the way I approach all of my projects, which it's a mashup somewhere between the architecture of the house, the people who are living in it and their story and their needs, and then my own design perspective. And the thing that I'm sort of proudest about, that I think is the thread through all of my projects, is that they feel really livable, and they feel like it doesn't look like the designer just left. It looks like there's a family in them and there's life happening in it. And that's really important to me. This house is a Tudor Revival with some arts and crafts elements in it. And so I was trying to play off those things while giving it a little bit of a modern hit. And I love southern climates, and I'm very drawn to the California Spanish colonial style. And so I was playing with some of that, some arts and crafts, some Tudor Revival, and then just honestly stuff I love. And that is kind of my messaging always to people when they're looking at what to do in their homes is just like fill it with the thing that makes your stomach flip, whatever that is, or fill it with your kids' art. Like, fill it with the things that have soul and meaning, and that's what is going to make your home sing. Let me take you upstairs now. Follow me. This is our primary bedroom. It is really somewhere where we can get away, somewhere that's a little bit quieter. We had some challenges when we were designing this because there's not really a great wall to put the bed up against. So I ended up with the bed up against the window, which is not generally my favorite, but it actually casts this really gorgeous, cool light. This window faces north, so it's not like the light is blasting into it all the time. It's just kind of gentle and quiet. The reason that I ended up with this bedroom as the primary is really because I was obsessed with this fireplace, and I was so excited to have a fireplace in my bedroom. And because I come from this editorial background, all I could think about was this shot, like this shot as you came in from the bathroom over the bed to the fireplace, which is a totally deranged place to design from, but it's what was kind of in my heart as I was doing it. So this pine mantle that doesn't have any of the proper stone around it would go up in smoke if we lit a fire in here. This is something that we added after the fact. So this is not a working fireplace. This is purely about some obsession I had with a shot. and that's why it's here, but it looks good. The items on this fireplace are like everything else in this house. It's a weird collection of stuff that for some reason was important to me, made sense, felt beautiful. So this is like, this was carved, my son's carved his name. It says mom at the top. Like, this was some sort of Mother's Day gift that my middle child made for me. My husband brought this back from a shoot in Africa, and I love it. It's made for, it's Ethiopian. And I think it's the Maasai who, maybe it's not Ethiopian, it's the Maasai who are meant to wear this. I clearly am bigger boned than the women who were meant to wear it. So now it sits beautifully here for me. This is a picture of my dad, my brother, and me in Montauk when we were like, I'm probably 11 there. This is a painting by one of the kids. So again, it's just full of stuff I love. This is a type of wall hanging that's done in Mexico. It's really, it's basically like all of the threads, and then they're tied together and corded. And it's just visually very pleasing. It's organic. It's not distracting for a bedroom. It's just quiet and gentle, and it's another layer of visual interest, and that's why it works in here. I'm going to take you a little bit over. So next to the mantle, it's really my bag of bags. It's my basket of bags. It's what's there. There's another Tuareg rug on the floor. This will also likely soon become subject to a winter rug, which will get layered over it, but we don't have that one out yet. These guys, these raffia elephants, there was a woman who used to sell, she's a South African, she sold just all of these beautiful, I don't know, little bits and bobs. And I can never, there's something about raffia that I love, again, for its texture. But I love these guys. They've got so much personality. There's one in my bathroom as well. They're unraveling, but aren't we all? And then over here is, this was like, it was pre-Facebook Marketplace that this chair came to me. It was like maybe Kijiji, maybe it was Craigslist. That's how long ago it was in the vintage shopping world. But I dug it out of some old man's basement, and it is now sitting pretty in my bedroom. The bed for me always needs to be somewhere calm. And I've always got this line from my mom in the back of my head, which is something like, oh, darling, I could never wake up in those sheets. Or I could never sleep in those sheets. That's what she always said. The idea that something is too much noise in a space that you need to sleep in is always sort of rattling around in the back of my head. So to that end, my beds are generally usually made very calmly. So on this bed is this pink throw that I brought back from India, and it's the most perfect shade of pink. Underneath that, I have a linen throw that just sort of tucks in underneath. This is like my latest look, but the reason I make the bed and my husband doesn't make the bed is this could change tomorrow entirely and look completely different. This headboard is actually like something that my friend was getting rid of, and I staple gunned fabric over. This is fabric left over from a client's project that I've hung on it because it's prettier than the fabric that was there before. These I think are from Pottery Barn maybe. And then the other really cool light that I love in this space is the one that's on the ceiling, and that was made by the same friend who made the light over my dining table. And this light is so beautiful because he gold leafed the inside. So it's really a fairly standard linen shade, but on the inside, he's gold leafed it by hand, and it just casts like the warmest glow. All over this house are photos of my kids, and photos of them at all these different ages. So this is from Panama, and these guys at this stage are about, I'm gonna say 2 and 4, and they've found a starfish. In this one, they found a starfish and they're playing with it. This one down here, I think, is Costa Rica, and they've just like these two. I've got pictures of them all over the world on the beach together. That's their thing. And still to this day, they're now like these young adults. And whenever we're at the beach, I've got a picture of them still like standing side by side, looking out at the ocean. And I love that. The primary bathroom sits right off the bedroom, and there's really very little privacy between the two spaces, which also maybe is something I do differently today. But again, it's quiet. It feels a little bit like a vacation to me. And that's, again, something that I wanted to have throughout this house. Like, you know, when you go on vacation, you want to be transported. You want to wake up somewhere that feels like beautiful and serene and calm. And I wanted to have that every day. And that's also what I always want for my clients. I want that they wake up and every day feel like the spaces that they want to go to while still looking like they're in the right place. So they can't look like they're in Mexico when they're in New York City, but you can have pieces of that still make sense. So this bathroom has a marble mosaic on the floor. It's still quite traditional. It still belongs in, you know, a Toronto house, but it's visually interesting. It's onyx, and that is something, that sort of gold flecking is something that's maybe what makes it a little bit different. And then our great big tub, which is one of my favorite spots. There's one of those happening every evening. This guy is the mama of the baby that's in our bedroom. And then again, pictures of the kids at various stages. That's one in my tummy, like just everywhere. Back to what makes a house feel like a home, I think seeing the people that you love reflected in it and who live there reflected in it is a big part of that. And then for storage, this is called a barrister's bookcase. They're really, really good. Like, so it would be like in a law office, you might see something like this, or you would have before everything was online. And then you would have books in behind there. They're really great for storing stuff in a bathroom, weirdly. Back to the architecture of this house and the Tudor, this sort of dark oak playing against the white is really beautiful and makes sense in the space. It's the right time frame for this piece. And then more pictures of the babies. I love this. There was a store in Toronto run by a hoarder, and he had every piece of plumbing from every old Toronto mansion that you could fathom. And he bought everything. And this was from him, and as are my toilet roll holders. And those are actually Victorian, but who cares? We're splitting hairs at this stage. These, again, look a little bit more Moroccan than anything else, but they gave me that nice warm glow that I love. Quite a bit of a modern floating vanity here. But it works as like a juxtaposition or a foil for the more traditional pieces in the house. And then these amazing louvered doors that again match the doors downstairs and give us like a wee bit of privacy, but not a ton. Home to me is a collection of moments, and sometimes those are visuals, sometimes it's oral, it's sounds, and it's smells. So it's, you know, a pot of something delicious cooking on the stove. It's the smell of something coming out of the oven. It's the sound of somebody giggling. It's a snuggle on the sofa. It's a dog just sort of harumphing, like settling into that moment. It's all those things stitched together. That's really what home means to me.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.